Have you ever heard of a country declaring war on a bird and losing? It sounds like a punchline to a joke, but I promise you this really happened. We're diving deep into one of history's most bizarre conflicts, Australia's Great Emu War. So, let's set the scene. It's 1932, Western Australia. The world is in the grip of the Great Depression, and life is tough. For Australian farmers, many of whom were veterans of World War I, things were about to get even tougher. These ex-soldiers had been encouraged by the government to start farming wheat in often marginal lands. They worked hard, they planted their crops, and they were desperately hoping for a good harvest to support their families. Then the emus arrived. And I don't mean a few, I mean an army. An estimated 20,000 emus, on their annual migration, discovered these new, sprawling wheat farms. To them, it wasn't a farmer's livelihood, it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. The emus, which are massive birds, mind you, standing up to 6 feet tall and capable of running at 30 miles per hour, descended upon the fields. They ate the wheat, trampled the crops, and smashed through fences, which then allowed other animals like rabbits to get in and cause even more damage. The farmers were at their wits' end. They were losing everything. So, a delegation of these soldier settlers went to the Australian government for help. They had a specific, and perhaps slightly dramatic, request. They asked for machine guns. Now, you might think the government would just laugh this off. But here's where it gets interesting. The Minister of Defense at the time, Sir George Pearce, actually agreed. Why? Well, it was seen as a win-win. The farmers would get their pest problem solved, and the Australian military would get some live target practice for their machine gunners. It was also a good public relations move, showing the government was supporting the struggling veterans. So, the plan was set. The Royal Australian Artillery would deploy troops, armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, to wage war against the emus. Major G.P.W. Meredith was put in command of this unusual operation. The media caught wind of it, and a cinematographer was even sent along to capture the glorious victory for the newsreels. What could possibly go wrong? The first engagement took place in early November 1932 in the Campion district. The soldiers spotted a flock of about 50 emus. This was it, the moment of truth. They set up their machine guns, took aim, and opened fire. The emus, instead of falling in neat rows as expected, scattered. They ran in every direction, zigzagging across the field with incredible speed and agility. The gunners, accustomed to stationary targets, struggled to keep up. After firing a huge number of rounds, they had managed to take down only a handful of birds. The rest had vanished. Major Meredith was reportedly quite surprised. He noted the birds' uncanny ability to absorb bullets. He said, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks." The emus were proving to be a much more formidable opponent than anyone had anticipated. A few days later, the soldiers tried a new tactic. They attempted an ambush near a local dam, where over 1,000 emus were spotted heading for water. This time, they thought, they couldn't miss. The gunners waited until the birds were in close range before opening fire. But at the first sound of gunfire, the huge flock split into countless small groups, running chaotically. The machine guns, designed for mowing down concentrated ranks of soldiers, were completely ineffective against this type of guerrilla tactic. To make matters worse, one of the guns jammed. The final tally for this grand ambush? About a dozen emus. The rest had once again melted away into the bush. The soldiers' frustration grew. They tried mounting a Lewis gun on a truck to chase the emus down. This also ended in disaster. The ride was so bumpy that the gunner couldn't get a steady aim. At one point, an emu they were chasing got tangled in the truck's steering wheel, causing the vehicle to swerve and crash through a fence. The bird got up and ran away, completely unharmed. The truck was damaged, and the soldiers were left sitting in the dust, defeated. After nearly a week of this war, the military had used over 2,500 rounds of ammunition to kill, at best, a few hundred emus. It was a humiliating failure. The media, which had initially hyped the operation, now began to mock it mercilessly. Headlines called it the Great Emu War, and cartoons depicted emus winning medals for their bravery. One conservationist wryly commented that the emus had invented their own form of guerrilla warfare. Back in Parliament, the debate was fierce. One politician joked that if there were any medals awarded, they should go to the emus, who had won every round so far. The public outcry and sheer embarrassment became too much. Less than a week after it began, the Minister of Defense ordered a full withdrawal. The troops packed up their guns and went home. The emus had officially won the first round, but the farmers' problems hadn't gone away. The emus, now unopposed, continued their feast. The farmers pleaded with the government again, and, believe it or not, Major Meredith was sent back for round 2 a couple of weeks later. This time, the military had a bit more success. They were more experienced, and they learned to adapt their tactics. They claimed to have killed nearly 1,000 emus over the next month. However, compared to the 20,000-strong emu population, it was a drop in the ocean. The cost in ammunition was still ridiculously high for each bird killed. By December, the military campaign was called off for good. It was simply not a cost-effective or practical solution. The official report concluded that the operation was a failure. The farmers were left to fend for themselves. So what happened next? Did the emus take over Australia? Not quite. The government eventually found a much more effective and less dramatic solution. They introduced a bounty system, paying people for emu skins. This proved far more successful than machine guns, and over 57,000 bounties were claimed in just 6 months in 1934. In the long run, the most effective deterrent turned out to be better, stronger, emu-proof fencing. So, the Great Emu War of 1932 passed into legend as one of history's strangest and most comical military campaigns. It's a hilarious story of man versus nature, where nature, armed with nothing but speed, resilience, and a lack of military discipline, completely outsmarted modern weaponry. It serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best, and that underestimating your opponent, even if it's a giant, flightless bird, can lead to some seriously embarrassing results. What do you think? Could you have done a better job against the Emu army? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading your thoughts, and if you enjoyed this weird slice of history, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories you probably didn't learn in school. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.